Tonight, a special edition of World News crash landing in San Francisco. The investigation underway right beside this runway that burned out fuselage. The terrifying final moments, the stories from inside the jet as it crashed into the runway.
Also the tail hit.
It just looks like a big thunderstorm.
The passengers desperate to get out, jumping from exit doors. Tonight, out on San Francisco Bay with a survivor, describing the silence inside the cabin after the crash. Then the fire erupting right after getting out.
Heavy emergency vehicles are responding. We have everyone on their way.
Tonight, the critically injured, the 2 young girls killed, and new details, what the pilot was asking for a second and a half before the crash. And the experts tonight on what to do right down to where to sit, how to survive a plane crash. A special edition of World News begins now.
From ABC News, this is a special edition of ABC World News with David Muir, reporting tonight from San Francisco.
And good evening. Thanks for joining us here on a Sunday evening as we come to you from California tonight. And we begin here right across the bay from San Francisco International Airport. In fact, over my shoulder here, you can see the burned out fuselage. We're going to take a live picture right now, an even closer view of Asiana Airlines Flight 214. We now know that flight left 2 people dead after crash landing here in San Francisco. Many others are fighting for their lives. Tonight, there are also new images capturing the exact moment of impact. The plane coming in so low, then after skidding, appearing to cartwheel, the nose up in the air before slamming back to the ground. The plane catching fire, driving everyone on board into the field right beside it. One of the survivors taking this photo as the stunned passengers watched the plane burn. The first look tonight inside, showing the mangled seats, the overhead bins open, the twisted doorway. And tonight, this heartbreaking image, the parents of one of the 2 16-year-old girls who died in the crash, learning of their loss back home in China. This evening, the search for answers underway. The flight recorders, those black boxes, rushed back to the NTSB lab in Washington. And here's where things stand right now. Of the 291 passengers and 16 crew members on board that flight from South Korea, 2 passengers, both 16-year-old girls from China, are the dead. 182 people were injured, and tonight 51 are still hospitalized. We were told 8 of them in critical condition, including a child. Their lives forever changed by this. We have team coverage tonight from all across the Bay Area right back to Washington, and we're going to begin here with the moment-by-moment details of how this disaster unfolded. Tonight, the aerial view of the Boeing 777, the charred jumbo jet, as it sits off the runway after crashing while coming in for landing at San Francisco's airport. The fuselage, nothing but a giant burned-out crater now, most of the roof gone. The nightmare began to unfold in the final seconds of Asiana Airlines Flight 214 as it approached that runway. It was before noon, 11:27 Pacific time Saturday, when that flight and the pilots were on their final approach. Witnesses telling us it hit the ground with tremendous force, the tail hitting first, just feet from the runway, scattering debris before coming to rest on its belly, roughly 80 feet from the runway.
It seemed to be arriving perfectly, and then all of a sudden it tilted up, sort of like 70 degrees, and it landed on its tail, made an impact, and then it slammed into the runway, and then it sort of tilted. It bounced up and then it tilted. It seemed like it did sort of a somersault. It crashed with a thump, a real loud, like, smash to the concrete. It was unnerving to see that.
So many who saw that crash landing echoing one another, saying the tail hit first.
I saw it come in. The tail was very low, and when it hit, sparks flew.
Also the tail hit, all some flames came out, then started turning around like a cartwheel, and then it looked like I couldn't tell if it slid or not, and all of a sudden it was in flames.
And tonight, a clearer portrait of the wreckage, where that tail ended up, sheared off and sitting on the runway. 2,000 feet of debris. Further back, the landing gear. And at the beginning of the runway near the seawall, the horizontal and vertical stabilizers ripped off the plane, so crucial to helping that jet land safely. With seconds to spare, the air traffic controllers here knew that the hundreds of passengers and crew on that jet were in trouble.
214 Heavy, emergency vehicles are responding.
11:35 Pacific time, just minutes after Flight 214 began that final approach, it had crashed. Rescue crews now racing to the runway. They arrived to find the chutes already deployed, the flight crews helping the passengers off. Many of those passengers with life-threatening injuries, compressed spines from the sheer force of the impact. Many of the passengers jumping before the chutes could even inflate. some of those chutes torn off with the impact. Eyewitnesses watching it all unfold.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Just how fast that we just saw a plane crash.
Police officers on the ground threw utility knives up to the plane's crew so that they could cut through the seatbelts of those who remained trapped. Late today, we were out on San Francisco Bay, the closest view yet of the wreckage, with one of the survivors, Benjamin Levy. You won't forget which seat you were in?
No, I won't. 30K.
30K?
Yeah.
Very close to the emergency exit?
The very seat next to the door.
Benjamin told me in those final seconds, it seemed as if the pilot was trying to take off again. As you were coming in over the water here in the bay, you said it felt like the pilot was trying to take off suddenly all over again.
Well, yeah, we were literally about to land. Everybody was sitting in their seats, and we're like seconds from touchdown. As we are approaching touchdown, the guy put full throttle on the engine to start to gain some altitude again because probably realized it was too low. And that was too late. The water started splashing everywhere. In fact, Ben telling me there was a false sense of security on that jet right afterward. Passengers were actually grabbing their suitcases, their bags, because they had no idea that fire was about to break out. This passenger, his arm in a sling as he left the hospital, can't get that sound out of his mind.
The moment it touched the runway, there was bang, and we realized that, something has gone wrong. Something as terrible has happened.
Silence before they all realized they were still alive. And those flight attendants, the heroes trained to get the passengers off, the first 90 seconds so crucial. This image tonight showing the billowing smoke, and as you move in, you can see the passenger windows there, the fire raging inside that cabin. All of the passengers had escaped.
I saw the flight attendant, one of the flight attendants stuck in between inflated slide and the wall of the plane. And the other side, there's a little tiny, girl, the flight attendant. She was basically organizing emergency exit and preparing evacuation and helping everyone so calmly and professionally. Of course, she was crying. She was on tears all over, but she was carrying, helping like a big man, twice big as her, and trying to get him out of the plane and helping other people and other crews as well. She was amazing.
That incredible crew, and we've also learned tonight that the bodies of those two teenagers were found beside the plane, beside the runway, one on each side of the plane. And without question tonight, the toll from this crash of Flight 214 would have been much higher if it hadn't been for those heroic flight attendants, as well as the first responders and other passengers who were helping people get off the plane before they would get off themselves. But more than half of those on board were injured, and some of them critically, fighting for their lives tonight. And ABC's Cecilia Vega is right here with me in San Francisco tonight.
Many of the passengers on board Flight 214 never thought they would make it out alive.
I feel lucky because we totally have 6 family members traveled on this plane, and we all are safe. So I feel lucky.
Among her family members still in the hospital, her 4-year-old son with a broken leg. For some, surviving was nothing short of a miracle, but for many others, the nightmare is only now unfolding. Of the 51 people who remain hospitalized, 8 cling to life, one of them a child. Their injuries, there's just one way to describe them: horrific. Doctors at San Francisco General Hospital are working around the clock to save them. Many passengers are still unconscious. Dr. Margaret Knutson is chief of surgery and head of the trauma